where we keep real wrestling alive. Welcome. Thank you for listening or watching. We're here for you, and we're trying to give people a better understanding as to what authentic catch wrestling is. So thank you for just being here. No matter how you're here, whether it's just listening to audio or watching video, we're also on Twitch. We also put this up available in podcast form as well. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can find us, Catch Wrestling Alliance Pod. So we should be pretty easy to find. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about what happened. Right. So in the UFC over the past weekend, there was a match, Shevchenko versus Andrade. So you have two dominant MMA fighters, and um, I think a lot of people were maybe thinking that things might go a little bit differently because Andrade is a jiu-jitsu black belt, but it didn't. So what did we see? We saw a woman, Shevchenko, who is not necessarily credited as being a wrestler. She's actually more of a striker, and even if you look up her like statistics and all that, she's credited as being um, more of a Muay Thai and Taekwondo artist, but she's also a judo practitioner. And we'll go ahead and get to that later. But what really won her this match was the wrestling ability. And so when you hear the commentary from like Daniel Cormier, basically it is wrestling, right? So, but the thing is, um, Shevchenko used the takedowns, which could be considered wrestling, or some people could consider it judo. But the main thing is that if you're upright, and so MMA kind of lends itself to be like a better situation to get these judo type takedowns, because in judo, a lot of times you'll want to be more upright. In actual wrestling competition, you're not going to want to stand up straight so much, right? But when you have an MMA situation where they're striking, your bodies or our bodies will naturally start to go a little bit more upright, so we can throw hands better and stuff like that. So that's kind of what happens in MMA. So that kind of lends itself to be dominated, at least with regards to takedowns, by judo practitioners, right? That's why Ronda Rousey did so well up until she got figured out by strikers, right? So that upright stance kind of lends itself to be like favorable for judo practitioners. But when you do that judo takedown, really it can be considered a wrestling takedown as well. If you do these different takedowns, most of the time, or at least quite a large percentage of the time, you'll end up past someone's guard when you land, right? So you take them down, you land on top of them, and that's the goal. You want to land on top of the person, and chances are you'll be past their legs. So using the terminology of jiu-jitsu, you'll be past their guard, and that allows you to really be dominant, right? So you don't have their legs trying to defend against you, or try to keep space from you. You can actually then go for that pin, right? So this is the point that I want to make, right? So Shevchenko basically pinned the opponent, right, and was able to get a finish because of that whole pinning pressure, right? Right. So that pinning pressure was what allowed her to get like that crucifix type position and just end the fight. And so let's go ahead and just show that to you right here. So let me go ahead and pull it up. I saved it for you guys so you guys can see. So go ahead and check it out. All right. All right. So hopefully you saw that, and hopefully you got a chance to kind of see what I'm talking about. So I was talking about getting that takedown, right? So you have the upright position, right? Even using the knees, or a lot of times even when you're putting pressure on someone against the cage, right? How Andrade was doing that. Shevchenko was able to use knees and stuff to basically keep the person upright, keep her upright, and then use like a really cool kind of lateral drop to get to get to get her down. And then, but you see how when they both landed, Shevchenko was already past the legs, right? So past the guard, right? And then kept that pinning pressure, so pinned her down, and then was able to get that mounted crucifix type position, and there was no escape from there, and it was basically just ended up um, getting that TKO win, I guess, or basically that stoppage, right? So these are the types of things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about pinning, right? So there's that whole rhyme, right, in wrestling where talk about like pinning is winning, right? So a lot of times that's what it is. It's not only just like winning wrestling matches, but in this case, it's winning MMA matches as well, right? So why is it winning when there's no pin finishes in MMA? It's because you control the person, right? And that's the point. You're able to control the person. They're not able to get up. They're not able to get out from underneath you, right? That is very important, and that will lead you many times to win your match, regardless of whether it's jujitsu or MMA. We do have a lot of these people who are good in jujitsu, like especially like nogi and stuff that are good at top pressure or top game. They'll win. I mean, you can win. That is a winning strategy, right? There are some people who are really good at doing submissions from underneath, and that's totally fine. But what I'm talking about here is a little bit more of a wrestling oriented point of view. So that's what I want to highlight. So but it's not like this is the only case. I think, but the thing is, um, this fight is an example of what happens. And I think a lot of times in our society, people are a little too jujitsu oriented, especially based on your guys' comments, right? You guys you come from this kind of orientation because jujitsu has become kind of like mainstream. So then you don't see these other things that are happening, or you think it's all part of jujitsu or something like that. So I think that's something that is worth talking about, and it's worth pointing out that there's these other things that are going on, like these great takedowns, right? That you're not seeing in jujitsu competition, even high level jujitsu competition. A lot of times people are just going straight to seated, right? So that's why I want to point these things out to you. So great takedowns, right? So it would be wrestling, kind of judo type things. And then quite often, when you get that takedown, you end up past their guard, right? Just naturally, when you both fall down, and then you're able to pin the person, keep them down, and you can set up your finish, whether it be it's like an MMA where you can do the TKO, or you can set up all kinds of submission holds, right? So whether it be uh, like chokes or whatever you're competing in, whether it's like nogi or other types of grappling competitions, you can set up those types of submission holds according to whatever you're doing, right? In MMA, was actually I think this can show, or at least this fight that I'm talking about right now, can show a very good example about why you want to stay on top, why like takedowns are great, and it can show maybe more of a realistic point of view or a realistic perspective about fighting in general. Um, where you don't just want to like pull guard or whatever, you don't just want to fall down, especially if you fall down onto your own back, right? So that's probably not the most ideal thing, right? So it's more ideal like if you're in a jiu-jitsu competition, totally fine. But because like everything's you got a nice mat, you got everyone who's kind of understands what you're doing, but say like in an MMA situation, it's not always the best things, and it's also can fatigue you if you're on bottom, right? There's been a big thing that I've talked about here, where Farmer Burns. So even back in the early 1900s, people knew that being underneath can it should be almost like a punishment, right? So people can still find really cool techniques that they can be doing, right, if they are underneath, to kind of reverse somebody, get out from underneath, do really cool submission holds or counter submission holds, or reversals where it leads to you pinning that person even though you started it off uh, underneath. totally fine. But then, say like what Farmer Burns was talking about, and I think I talked about it a couple weeks ago, where he was talking about like if you're the person on top, then you want to make sure that you use your weight and you use gravity against the person on bottom to fatigue them, right? So he makes the analogy about working out, right? So if you push their head down, then they're going to resist you. They're going to try to pop their head back up. So you push it down again, and that basically what he ends up saying is that a person can only do so many reps, right? So you push them down and they resist you and bring their head back up. They've lifted, say, like 80 pounds of pressure, and like how many times can you do that before you've lifted thousands of pounds? And usually when you get into that kind of range, you're gonna fatigue. Your muscles are gonna fatigue, and they won't be able to lift anymore. They won't be able to resist anymore. So in catch wrestling, there wasn't these time limits like in MMA or even wrestling nowadays, or jujitsu nowadays. There was no time limit, so you can really see this methodology or this kind of strategy work itself out like very well. But it can still work out in like these things like say MMA where you have 5 minute rounds. You can still be fatiguing the person, still staying on top of them, still annoying them like with by peppering them with all these little rabbit punches, right? So if you're on the bottom, right, so how we saw in the fight right now, it's like ultimately, you know, like uh, there was no real knockout, right? But it was just like it was it's just like a repeated blows, and the person on bottom couldn't get out, right? So when you can't get out, they say you can't defend yourself intelligently. So then the referee has to stop the fight because you're gonna lose, and it's also it shows that um, they don't want to prolong the your suffering anymore, right? Um, all right. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get to some of your questions because I think you guys are already asking questions here. All right. Well, hello to Shahid Kapoor and hello to Ripper Catch Wrestling. Um, so, let's see what you got. Have I ever wrestled with a girl? Yeah. I mean, I train a lot of women. I think you see, I try to bring some of them on my channel. So yeah, I train a lot and a lot of different women for different types of competition. A lot of times for MMA or different grappling. So yeah. So happy to train happy to train anybody really. Anybody who wants to learn. I'm happy. I'm here for you. Okay. All right. Uh, Shahid, five dangerous women wrestlers names. I don't know. I mean, depends. Are we talking about grappling or real wrestling? If we're talking about freestyle wrestling, I really like my one of someone who I think is really nice, um, Adeline Gray. She's really nice and she's tough and she's very strong, but very nice. And I had a chance to even meet her dad. So everyone's just so nice in their families, and I really like her a lot, and I hope she does well in Tokyo. Um, all right, Taquero Man, thoughts on Valentina's ground game displayed at UFC 261? Do you think she used any catch wrestling principles? Would consider what she was doing as pinning? I guess you came late, Taquero Man, because I spent the whole first 14 minutes talking about that. So yeah, of course, since they're more upright, it's more judo like. Still wrestling. I would still consider it wrestling, but uh, Valentina does. I believe, according at least to her Wikipedia page, I believe she's like a black belt in judo. So you probably have to give judo a nod there, at least an honorable mention. But the thing is, once they got down to the ground, it's all pinning, right? Judo does kind of have that aspect, right, where they talk about showing the dominant, like kind of a longer period of pinning, or at least keeping someone down when they're in judo competition. So yeah, but it's still pinning, right? So yes, of course, of course. Also, Taquero Man 91, what kind of drills or solo work do you do for grappling? A lot of times, you can do. Uh, if you were, if you remember of the CWA Academy, I put up some videos there for people who've been there for a while to do different types of drills that they can do. It's a little bit difficult to show right here, right now, but there's a lot of different movement drills that you can be doing, but then also different types of exercises that you can do as well, right? So still, I would think even with regards to something I can show you right now that it's actually very helpful is some workout or at least like some kind of exercise or common exercises that you can be doing. And actually, one of the things is like the lat pull down. Where you um, if you're at a gym and they have like a cable machine or you pull a bar down, right? That's actually really good. Or if you do pull ups, like that type of thing is really good. Or rows, right? So anything where you're pulling something to you. So what the reason why they're different, the reason why I mentioned these two in particular, so it's like just think anything you're pulling back this way, it's actually a different plane, right? So pulling horizontally towards you or pulling down like so from up to down is also very important because when you're wrestling, you're really actually coming forward and you're reaching out and pulling this way. So that would actually be mimicking that lat pull down movement. Or if you're kind of more facing each other, you're grabbing the person and then you're pulling towards you, right? So these types of things happen a lot in wrestling. You're reaching, grabbing, and then kind of pulling in, right? So any type of and then these are the and unfortunately in working out, a lot of guys in the gym, they only want to do like they want big pecs or whatever. So they're pushing, right? With they're pushing more than pulling. But when you're actually in competition or you're sparring or whatever, you're actually pulling more than pushing. So that's why I want to emphasize the pulls because a lot of times they get neglected. Everyone wants to do the push-ups and bench press and all that. But in wrestling, you don't necessarily want to be pushing someone away, right? You actually want to be, especially in catch wrestling, the whole mentality is like pulling someone in, right, and taking them down, or not necessarily running from them. But you see in modern wrestling a lot of running or stalling and all these types of things because it's become a point game, right? So say if you get all these points, then you can keep your distance and just wait out the end of the match, and then you've won, right? So there's that whole distance thing. Catch wrestling, you might because there's no points, right? Then you can totally like just go. We call it like a leg dive. Just throw yourself in there, right? If you're good, who cares if you're on the bottom? You'll be able to wrestle your way out, right? So that's the difference. So you get in there, right, with catch wrestling. That's kind of the mentality, more so than just like stalling, keeping the person at a distance, right? Kind of pushing away. No, it's more pulling in, right? So those types of exercises are what you want to be doing, right? Let's see. So let's get. Well, you guys are asking a lot of questions. Okay, so let me scroll back here. Uh, Whoa, actually, a lot of questions came. I got to go back a little ways here. Um, Let me see. What's your name? Wesposo. Uh, what is your favorite attack on an opponent's arm? Straight arm bar. So usually I start off with double wrist lock position, right? So what people consider Kimura, or I hear so many people call it Kimura trap nowadays. Um, Kimura trap. Right, so you Kimura trap them, and a lot of times if they resist, especially if it's a higher level person, they're going to know all these types of counters to your Kimura or your double wrist lock. So they're going to be fighting, right? So a lot of times you got to ride them out, and quite often I end up uh, going from that double wrist lock position to a straight armbar position. So I guess that's why that has become my favorite submission because I I get it a lot, especially because people are thinking um, like they're thinking of that Kimura trap, or they're thinking of like that the finish from there. So they're defending that, and then all of a sudden, when their arm gets extended, um, that is like very surprising to them. Okay, Taquero Man 91. Do you use a notebook to work on your training? How do you organize or strategize for your own grappling game? Kind of like what I was saying earlier, where you got to be thinking about the types of movements you do, so then you can figure out how you can strengthen that or those types of movements. So you realize that in grappling, you're actually more forward, like you're crouched down and you're reaching forward. So say if I'm like this and then I come back, that means I'm more like my arm is up like this. So if I'm if I'm pulling a person to me, what movement is this? This is actually like a lat pull down type movement or a pull up, right? Right. So you got to be strengthening those types of movements to make it easier for you to implement your techniques. All right. So you do those types of strengthening things. Later on, like you won't necessarily need a notebook, but you totally can. It helps a lot of people. Many years ago, I did keep kind of like a journal of like how much weight I was lifting and this and that. But I don't. I guess I feel like I don't need it anymore. I just kind of know or kind of figured out some things that um, work for me. So just try to find out what works for you and implement that. So think about the movements you're kind of doing, and try to strengthen those. Of course, squats and stuff so good. Um, so think about those things and make sure you're stretching, of course. Um, okay, so S. Brion, what is the best way to break the jiu-jitsu guard with catch wrestling? Do you try leg attacks or try to pass the guard? Quite often, I will try to pass the guard um, more than leg locks. But you totally can. It's almost like it depends on how easy I think the person is, or not easy, but like how advanced they are with leg locks. I used to spar all the time at like 10th Planet with some of their more advanced people. So like then I would focus on passing their guard more than trying to leg lock them, because they're really good at escaping the leg locks, or they're really comfortable with it. So then they'll recognize if someone tries to put it on. So then they'll try to defend against it, right? Or they'll try to escape before you can really lock it in. So that's one of the things that I would say is kind of depending on um, who you're going up against. But really, I think you should really be thinking about pinning ultimately, controlling the person more so than some of the leg lock stuff. But yeah, all the leg locks are good. And like, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and go for that. But try to stay on top. So try not to give up try not to pin yourself, right? All right. So 357 Kill Bill was the closed guard and submissions from the bottom found in old catch wrestling. And yeah, they call it body scissors. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. But the thing is, it wasn't like what's happening in jiu-jitsu today because of the pin, right? And I think they correctly realized that being on the bottom isn't the best thing, or it's not the best place to be. So they would get out, right? But yeah, there's a lot of so they would go basically, if you want to think about it, if you ended up in body scissors, or you try to get the person over to their side, try to get on top of them, or you try to get out from underneath. But going to turtle or stuff like that to set up counters, that's more of the way. Okay, Taquero Man. Do you think body types play a role in grappling? Should a lanky or stocky person focus on different types of games? Yeah, like a tall person has to wrestle tall, right? So um, I know like Roy Wood, who is the coach at the Snake Pit Wigan. Um, he is a taller man, so he does all kinds of stuff with his legs because his legs are longer. So he sets up these kind of leg hip locks and stuff like that. Um, or even a lot of the headlock takedowns and stuff like that because he's taller. So if he's going up against an opponent that's shorter than him, a lot of times the opponent's like their head or in his chest, right? So then he sets up like headlock takedowns. When he gets the person on the ground, he can set up like different types of leg entanglements. So a lot of hip locks, different things like that because his legs are longer. So you can, if you're a taller person, you can try to figure out these types of like wrestling for tall people, kind of, So it doesn't mean that you can't do it, right? Because I think quite often I've heard also where people are saying like, "Oh, wrestling might be for a shorter person or something," but um, if you're tall, you can still do it. If you like wrestling, go for it, right? There's just different things that will probably work better for a taller body. Yeah. Do I have Wes Pozo? Do you have a name of any old catch wrestling books with photographs? Not off the top of my head, but there is a video of an old match with Luthez on YouTube that you can find. So there's an old, it's a pro wrestling match, of course. So take it with a grain of salt. But there's a Luthez shows how when someone gets the body scissors, they're basically closed guard, right? How he gets out, he does like the step over. But you can see it in action. It looks pretty cool. So just look up Luthez and check out a bunch of his pro wrestling matches. So you can see it in real life. You can see it in action, right? Instead of just a book. Uh, Let me see. Taquero man, is strength important for grappling, or is technique the most important thing when it comes to grappling? Ultimately, technique I believe would be the most important, but you gotta blend in the strength and conditioning. Otherwise, you're gonna get too tired to even use your techniques, right? So you gotta be doing all the different components. So just think there are different components to actually even in fitness, health and fitness. Since I've worked in health and fitness for the longest time, there are different components to just general physical fitness. So there's the strength, right? So lifting weights or whatever. Then the endurance, right? The conditioning. So that's like the cardiovascular endurance. So like doing cardio, right? So they're two different things. And then also flexibility, right? So the more flexible your joints are, the less likely you are to get injured. But then also, the more strong you are, the more stable your joints can be. So then that again also decreases your chances of injury. So those are all considered parts of the whole pie, right? So then you got to be blending the techniques plus the strength and conditioning, flexibility training, uh, trying not to eat so much junk food and all that, like because that also is taxing on your body. So you want to be light, right? So um, you don't want to drag down your body when you need it to be performing for you, right? That's the worst thing where it's like you're not drinking enough or you're not hydrated enough, and then while you're grappling, then you get a cramp or something like that. That's really annoying. Um, Takeru Man again, does catch wrestling borrow anything from other styles of grappling? Yes, of course. Um, as it evolved over actually quite a long time, quite like like it was a regional style in Northern England, and it had many influences. So a lot of times, it seems like more influences came from Europe than any other way or any other places. So like there was waves of immigration across Europe from like mainland Europe so to that area. Those seems to have a lot of effects, or at least a lot of influence, right? So yes, of course, of course. Any upcoming catch wrestling events? Yeah, hopefully. So Los Angeles, um, we are doing quite well with COVID. Actually, California in general, even though we have such a large population, we're doing really great. A lot of people are vaccinated, and um, a lot of people are actually like wearing masks and stuff. So we came in number two, I guess, over the weekend with least amounts of new cases and stuff like that. So Hawaii beat us. Um, so good for them right now, but also good for us because like now our movie theaters are open and a lot of restaurants are open and stuff where you can sit inside. Less, very low chance of catching COVID. So we should be able to have events coming up pretty soon. So let's see what we can do, and hopefully get something going on here in LA really quickly, like really soon. But let's just be careful about it. But we should be able to do something pretty soon. Do I use the massage gun for recovery? No, I don't even have one. I try to stretch and uh, yeah, try to eat a lot of vegetables. Taquero man, what are some of your favorite martial arts gyms that you have visited? Anything that does nogi, any nogi gym, I like. Right, so here in LA, we have a lot of 10th Planet gyms. It's kind of funny. Yeah, we have the headquarters. We have West LA. We have Pasadena. We have some in the Valley. So um, we have a lot of 10th Planet. Uh, Maybe it would be cool in San Diego. There's like what, Atos. Um, but I don't know how if they do nogi all the time. But anyway, you know that 10th Planet does no gi all the time because they don't do gi at all. So anything that offers no gi, 'cause what happens is here in LA, like uh, like a lot of gyms for some reason they just really focus on gi. So maybe they'll have like one or two no gi classes per week, which is just not enough, not enough. But I guess like gi is just that popular that they still they it must be that popular because they don't focus on anything else. Does Taquero man, does catch wrestling have a systematic approach? Of course, of course. Who Taquero man? Who would you consider to be a grappling mentor of? So, a grappling mentor of mine, of course, like Roy Wood, John Strickland, right? Two actual uh, catch wrestling coaches with catch wrestling lineage. You can't get any higher level than Roy Wood or John Strickland. So, enlightened spirit, Coach Raul, I see you. Okay, who are you, enlightened spirit? Give me your name. All I see is your handle, so I don't know. I don't know who you are in particular, but happy you see me. uh, I'm not quite sure who you are. I can see your thumbnail is really small on this screen. But thanks for being here in enlightened spirit. All right, so go ahead and keep asking your questions. But yeah, ultimately, the oh George. All right, so cool. So enlightened spirit is George. So George actually is a New York student of mine. He trains at Fight Science MMA. Yeah, welcome, George. Yeah, you might see George in some of our upcoming like technique videos. So you'll see him soon enough, right? Because he's a regular student. He's a good student because he comes regularly, right? So he has to get better, right? So thanks for being here, George. All right, so keep asking questions. Um, Taquero man, do you speak any other languages? Yes, I can speak Spanish and Mandarin. So that's why I go to like Singapore and China. Um, we have a if you guys are on if you guys are on social media in China, like Weibo, we have social media in Chinese. Um, S. Brion, how do your online lessons work? So what we do for our it's called Catch Wrestling Alliance Academy or CWA Academy. That basically works by you sign up and then you get access to all these lessons or courses. So they're divided up into different subjects, right? And so in the the initial offering, you will get a few different courses or two fundamentals courses that I require you to be proficient at, and I would want you to send in your videos of you doing those techniques before you get access to more advanced stuff. But you do get a relatively advanced course also there from my buddy John Strickland, who I mentioned earlier as being one of the legit and more high level coaches that you can find anywhere in the world. So there is a course there from his time here in LA. And different, so basically, there's a few different offerings there to kind of get you better oriented to catch wrestling. And then once you become proficient in the fundamentals, then you get access to more advanced courses. And then, but I want it to be like, I want you to be like good, like proficient. And so then it's not just going to be like, oh, you just submit all the videos for all these, these different techniques and that's it. And I really want to be seeing you applying these things. So once you finish like the the initial courses and I give you access to more, I want to also be seeing you sparring, training, so that you can so that I know that you're understanding it. Because also too, then I've seen some people where it's like we get uh, you get inundated by all these types of weird, we call them like show holds, or so like people are teaching all kinds of random stuff that's like a really low percentage um, hold, right? And then people are thinking they can do all these kinds of submission chains and stuff like that. But when you're grappling with a higher level person or even a good wrestler, right, they might not know submissions, but they're good at the wrestling fundamentals, they can get out of a lot of these things. So you're not going to be able to do all these kinds of submission chains or different weird things that are actually low percentage in real grappling. So um, that's why I want to see that you have a good understanding of what catch wrestling is and you're applying these principles, right? So then you can move up more and more. All right. So that's basically how the online lessons work. Right. And hopefully then, wherever you are, we can try to work together. Maybe, if you or you start training other people, if they want to be competing, that's one of the things we'd really like to just build, um, like a larger pool of authentic catch wrestlers. 357 Kill Bill, do you offer affiliation? Yeah, so the people who pass these courses would be affiliates. So they'd be, so it'd be like level one, like they have shown proficiency, right? And then we have level 2, 3, and 4. All right, Taquero man, Mandarin, how cool! I'm trying to learn Japanese right now. I also speak Spanish. Cool, yeah, keep it up. You gotta really be working these languages out. It's just like working out your muscle, right? You gotta just really immerse yourself in whatever language you want to learn. Japanese is pretty cool because if you watch anime and stuff, you can see it in the original language. All right. Taquero man, who would you put on your catch wrestling Mount Rushmore? Hmm. I don't know. Maybe Farmer Burns, Tom Connors, um, Billy Riley. Right. How many people were on Mount Rushmore? Is it 4 or 5? Anyway, but um, Yeah, a lot of these, I think a lot of people don't, maybe through marketing and stuff. A lot of times they don't know some of the great American wrestlers, but we had a few. We had some really great people. So that's one of the things I also want to try to promote, or at least like let people know about. That's why I also talk about Farmer Burns and stuff like that, or people like him, because it seems as though maybe sometimes the Europeans get a little bit more get a little bit more love, right? Um, so yeah, definitely put people like that, like Farmer Burns, up there. All right. So keep asking your questions. Thanks everyone for watching. So the main point again was how wrestling, and even so in this case judo, a mix of Shevchenko's judo and wrestling, won her latest MMA match against Andrade, and so like just how dominant was that, right? You got a judo takedown, so you got someone upright. So I consider those kinds of takedowns like maybe a little more judo like, even though we have those takedowns in catch wrestling as well. And so when you end up landing on the person, you land on top, and most of the time you actually end up past their guard. So like what we saw at the end of the match, and um, just pinning, right? Pinning was the main thing that made it so that Shevchenko could just stay on top, did this kind of mounted crucifix, and pounded her out. It was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. All right, Daniel. What's up, Coach? COVID put a pause on my catch. Hope to see you soon. Yeah, hope to see you. Hope to see you soon, Daniel. Yeah, COVID put a pause on like so much, right? But yeah, things seem to be coming back. Uh, yeah, yeah. All right. So, any other questions? Go ahead and feel free to ask. Thank you so much, everybody, for asking. There's a lot of questions. So it's cool, really cool. Happy to be here for you guys. Um, let me see. Taquero man, could you make a video about the history of catch wrestling? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did one interview with Robbie Burrows, where we talk about that. Um, so that was like probably a couple months ago now, but you can check out that interview. We talk about that. Right. Let me see who else is there. Oh, MD asking about Kerr and Jacobs. We don't work together, so I don't know. And we haven't worked together in years. So you'd have to ask whoever he's working with. All right. Any other questions? No. S. Brion. Would something like peekaboo boxing work well in combination with catch wrestling? Yeah, yeah. Even Billy Robinson thought boxing was a great combination with catch wrestling. I think personally, I think Chinese kickboxing, Sanda works even better because it has a takedown component in it already. So you have this great combination of striking that leads to takedowns. So I think that's even better than just boxing because like the punches are almost like how we were talking about earlier, where you're working out and you're doing pushing, right? So you can think punches are like pushing. You're doing damage, but you're also keeping the person at a distance. And then you don't end up grappling with them that much. If you can get a knockout, great. But the thing is, if you want to show off your grappling, then you got to get good at catching them, or getting a hold of them while you're striking. So I think Sanda does a way better job at that. So that's why that's my opinion. Taquero man, how long have you been doing catch wrestling for? Yeah, over 10 years. 357 Kill Bill. Any plans to bring more sanda. Oh, sorry, you guys. Okay, hold on. It's moving quick. Okay, so any plans to bring more sanda in your programs? It's hard to find. Okay, yeah, we do have a course right now on our website that is it shows a lot of sanda takedowns. So it's like basically a lot of takedowns in a MMA situation or a sanda situation, kickboxing situation. So we have that course up there. We also have another YouTube channel where I put a lot of the kickboxing stuff on there that has some of the sanda stuff. So that's called Kung Fu Culture. So Kung Fu with a K, KUNG, FU, and then culture is spelt with a K, right? So Kung Fu Culture. So you can check that one out. We try to put some of the more kickboxing stuff on there. We'll try to add more stuff, especially since the other fight that happened that was a pretty big news over the weekend was the Zhang Wei Li fight where she ended up getting knocked out by a head kick. So we'll probably talk about that or do videos about that. Okay, Enlightened Spirit. Why do so many gyms not want to teach their beginner students leg locks? Wouldn't teaching them leg locks as a beginner make them more aware of the pros and cons of those grappling moves? Yes, yes, and it's kind of funny that I think there was some meme going around where it's like a picture from that old TV show called Little House on the Prairie. It's like a family picture, like a family portrait where people are dressed up in clothes from so long ago, and I think it says where it's like this is how your jujitsu school looks when you don't teach leg locks or something, where you look like so antiquated, right? So old fashioned. Yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate because then like I've seen because I've worked at different MMA or different jujitsu gyms, and it's like people are teaching almost like they're almost teaching a leg lock, right? You set up the leg entanglement position, but then they use it to stand back up, or they use it to kind of get out from underneath, and where they could, but they don't show like so that would be all well and good. You show people different options, right? But they're not showing them the leg lock option. So it's really bizarre sometimes, like how some instructors will go out of their way to not show leg locks. Like where it's like you show the student almost everything except the leg lock. So I've been in these really bizarre classes. So I think that's I don't think it's good. I think you should show uh, and I at least say like in my classes, I try to show different variations and stuff of what could happen. All right. So I believe that people should get an understanding of leg locks. It's true that like everything's dangerous. Every technique is kind of dangerous. So just gotta make sure your students are aware, of the dangers, and you gotta teach them right. You gotta teach them well, and just know that accidents will still happen, but it's okay, right? Um, does catch wrestling have a bottom game? Of course it does. And I even have a whole video series. I think it's like 4 videos where of course, it's not everything, but you can look on our channel, see at least on YouTube. Look on our channel, and there's a catch wrestling from bottom playlist. I put one up because so many people ask that question. So it's just a few techniques from bottom, but it's at least to give you an idea. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, did a catch wrestler from the past ever challenge other martial arts? Of course. That's why catch wrestling still survives today. So not only did Sakuraba beat all the Gracies, but that's more modern, right? But in the past, so there's all these challenges too. There was even um, catch wrestling matches for President Teddy Roosevelt and all that, where he would have people come in and especially like Japanese judo people come in to have matches against American catch wrestlers, and yes, of course, there's a long history of that. Is luta libre and catch wrestling related or connected? Yes, they are, but they kind of evolved away from each other. There's not much of an emphasis on pins, so yeah, they are different. All right. Okay, so we're nearing kind of like the hour mark. So I'll go ahead and let you guys get a rest from my voice. Right? Hopefully, you guys kind of understood my point about like the whole pin, really being good at takedowns, um, how that can lead to winning. Right. So even what John Danaher a few months ago was talking about pins and stuff like that, and how good they are, and how effective, how like that they are an effective tool for you in grappling. So and we see, in MMA, it's also a very effective tool, right? So, with that being said, I'll go ahead and uh, say goodbye. Feel free to become a member of this channel; it helps us out. But yeah, let's keep real wrestling alive. Thank you for watching.